Okay guys, so I'm gonna talk to you guys a bit about purpose in this video and what my understanding is of purpose and just how it works, how to find your purpose and what relationship to have with your purpose, because I feel like purpose can be a bit of a silver bullet. It can be really helpful and can enlighten you and really just sort your life out basically if you have like a clear purpose, but it can also just leave you feeling really frustrated and confused if you kind of half understand it, you know. I feel like for a long time I sort of half understood how purpose works, and I was just more confused by it than I am now, than I was before. But I've recently really just sort of had a few experiences that have really made me understand it, and I think I can explain it to you today. So, when people talk about purpose, what do they mean exactly? Well, I'm going to talk about a few experiences that I had. I'm going to talk about one quite recently. So, I have a real interest in Eastern Europe. It's one of my favourite places to travel to. I love the culture, I love the kind of aesthetic, I love the people, the languages, all this kind of stuff, right? And recently I got the opportunity to travel to Moldova, which is about as Eastern European as you can get. And, you know, I went to the capital, Chisinau, and I saw just everything that I was looking for. You know, there were these big Soviet flats, there were these Orthodox churches, you know, that people were speaking Russian on the streets. It was so Soviet, so Eastern European. And I was really excited by this. I was like, wow, how cool is this? And it's funny, I got home afterwards and I felt there was something different about my relationship to how I liked Eastern Europe. And I slightly felt that it had a slightly looser grip on me. And I was a little bit less interested in Eastern Europe. And in one sense, I was rather sad by this, because I thought, oh, you know, this is such a big part of my personality and my life, and you know, I get so much joy from you know, I don't know, watching videos about Eastern Europe, studying Eastern Europe, and suddenly I don't seem to get it quite as much. You know, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a fascinating part of the world, but something's changed. I'm slightly more sort of at peace with my interest in that region. It doesn't grasp me in quite the same way that it used to. And in a sense, like I say, this is rather sad. You know, I've not lost, but I don't really have quite that same connection to this part of the world. But on the other hand, I'm actually quite relieved. You know, I feel like a weight's been taken off my shoulder. Almost like it's one less thing to think about. And this experience that I've had is basically how I see purpose working. Is that you get really interested in some kind of goal, you know. So in this example, it was traveling to Eastern Europe, or like experiencing Eastern European life, and then you achieve it, and then the goal kind of seems silly and a bit superficial. That's the best way that I can describe it. And it's so funny because I've had so many times in my life where I've had a similar thing happen, where I've found something I'm really interested in, and then I'll stop being interested in it all of a sudden. And I've always thought that was like a bad thing, and that you know, I needed to regain my interest in it. But now I look back on it, I think what happens with all that stuff is you reach a certain milestone in it. For example, I used to be really interested in writing music, and I still love doing it. But there came a point where I stopped becoming so interested in it and started becoming more interested in learning languages. And there was, at the time I felt rather sad because I thought, no, I need to keep my interest in writing music. This is like my passion. I really identified with this as being my passion. But now I look back on it, I just thought, no, I think I just reached a milestone with it. I reached a milestone where I was now happy with my ability to write music. I didn't need to do it anymore. I kind of, like I say, peel back that layer of my purpose. And I think it's the exact same thing with so many areas of my life. At the moment, I'm slightly less interested in learning languages than I was a couple of years ago. And in a sense, that is, I feel, again, rather sad about that. But again, I just realised, no, I've just sort of achieved what I wanted, what I set out to achieve there. And I've fulfilled my purpose, and it's sort of opened me up to explore more things. And so anyway, it's so funny because I see people talk about purpose and say, oh, you got to lock yourself in the room and in a room and really do some deep journaling and really figure out what your purpose is. But I think that's the wrong way to look at purpose. And I actually think purpose is a lot more goal-oriented than people think, at least in the way that I see it described. I think it's as simple as just having something, being sort of compelled by something to do something. Maybe that's, start a YouTube account, learn a martial art, whatever. And then it's just doing it, and then it's kind of seeing where that goes. And at some point along the line, you'll probably fulfill that, and then there'll be something else that you've got to do as well. And that's kind of, your mission is basically just to follow that train of interest. Now, of course, I'm talking about it in very idealistic terms. I think there are very practical things right now. There are practical elements to it as well, and David Dada in The Way of the Superior Man talks about this as well. He says, yeah, you gotta sort of follow your purpose and fulfill it, but all the while you've got to keep your obligations to your fellow man. So, let's say if you become really interested in martial arts and you enter yourself into a competition, and then you sort of learn what you went in to learn about martial arts. You have a kind of feeling where this is no longer your purpose. Don't then just quit the fight. Still go and do the fight, but it's okay for you to acknowledge that you've fulfilled that layer of your purpose, and now it's time to move on to the other thing. Maybe you've done martial arts and that's given you a real interest for yoga, or I don't know, anything. Sports commentating, whatever. But I think the point is that by fulfilling your purpose, that kind of gives you the next purpose on top. And it, as well, it allows you to live life at its richest and most profound. And it's how life's meant to be lived. So I think it's really as simple as that. And I think you can fight against this wave, or you can go with it. And I think finding your purpose is as simple, and defining your purpose is just as simple as realising how it works and making a kind of game plan towards it. So now, for example, I know that, okay, I've fulfilled this kind of purpose of my life of Eastern Europe. Will I be back to Eastern Europe in the future? 100%. If I could, I'd love to travel to Ukraine and Russia and all these other places. If I got the chance to go, I'd take it in a heartbeat. But I don't feel compelled to go in the way that I did before, the way that I felt compelled to go to Moldova, for example. So yeah, there's something opening up. There's kind of a new gap that I'm gonna have to choose. And the way I am right now, and I can only speak as one person, I see quite a lot of things that I could put my purpose into. But I think to do purpose finding to your best ability, you should focus on one for a period of time. It doesn't have to be a long period of time, it can just be 3 months. And just focus on that. And set a goal within that purpose. And because actually setting a proper goal in a purpose really sort of gives a lot of fire to the engine. So that's the way that I've planned to do it. And you might hit the goal, you might miss the goal, you might get halfway through to doing the goal and then realise that it's actually not your purpose anymore, that you kind of fulfilled what you set out to get from it. In which case, I would say persevere with it anyway, until the end of the time you've allotted, for example 3 months, and then move on to something else, because you still need to have some kind of discipline with it, because there are times when you just have a bad week doing, fulfilling your purpose, and you feel low motivation, but really it's just a bad week. You need to give it a bit more time to know if that's really the case or not. So that's what I'd recommend to do. For example, you don't want to be a pain. You don't want to be someone who's constantly changing your pathway. That doesn't mean that you won't, but when you do change your pathway, you want it to be for the right reason, because you're moving on to the next thing. And yeah, so that's my kind of perception of how purpose works and where to go from it. I hope this has been helpful, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you've made it this far and you're interested in purpose setting and goal setting, or even self-improvement more widely, get in touch with me. Bottom link in the description. I am at the moment running a coaching course. You can have a free call with me where we can discuss sort of goal setting and purpose and stuff like that. If you're feeling like you want a bit more of what I'm talking about here, and maybe I can help you out.